The show where there are no penalties, nothing is offside, and everything is fair game. This is The Gloves Are Off.
I'm Moses Gould, and welcome to The Gloves Are Off. We got a great show for you today. Of course, we're going to talk about the CPCA. Daniel Alfredson wearing a Sens jersey, even though he plays with Detroit. Seems a little fishy, but we'll tell you more about that. As well as Rob Bagg and his update on his injury against the Montreal Alouettes over the weekend. Speaking of injuries, this man has survived paper cuts. This man has survived staple attacks.
Oh, yes.
But is here in the flesh in the studio. Greg Buchanan.
Yeah, the hands are all here. Good, good. Yes, not too bad. How are you doing, Moses?
Not too bad. I know you had a wild weekend, of course, the CPCA, the crazy finish we'll get to in a second, but you must be exhausted.
A little exhausted. 2.5 months, almost 3 months of racing is done, and now a few weeks' time we'll be at the rink and hockey begins. So a little rest and get right back at it again.
Now that's a great segue to get to this man, the Bobcats marketing manager, of course, Malcolm Racky. How's it going?
Good, really good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. We're going to talk about those Bobcats in a little bit later. But first, let's talk about the NSRBL. The Lloydminster Twins are now 5-time champions, so at least in a row. They've won 9 of the last 15 years. Considering what they did, won it on a walk-off, beating the Border City Blue Jays, who I thought could actually win it this season, just came a little bit short. But considering what we saw from the Twins this year, the adversity they faced, could this be probably, arguably, the best generation that we have ever seen in terms of local baseball players in the NSRBL?
Right up there. It's got to be right up there. You know, they've had a great core for how many years? Yeah, they're getting a little bit older. Some of the older boys came back, and at the same time, there's some young kids coming up in the Twins organization that are starting to really, contribute. And it's tough. I know, relating back to hockey, but running the Border Kings for as many years as I ran them for, anytime that we went to the rink, we were expected to win, and if we didn't win, it was disaster. And if we didn't win by more than 3 goals, it was, what's wrong with the Kings? So there's pressure on that team every year. I don't know what it's like. You got to win, and everybody expects you to win. And if you don't win, then it's a disaster.
Yeah, but at the same time, they have that winning culture, and they know how to win, which is the key. You get late in the year, and the adversity shows up, and then all of a sudden you band together, and you remember you've been there before, late in the game. Somebody comes through with a clutch hit, that sort of thing. Maybe that's what the Blue Jays are lacking. They're still on their way up. Maybe it's their year next year, and they can kind of take it from there. But, since I can remember growing up watching the Twins, they've always been good. Like, it's just a winning organization through and through, so no surprise that they can always come through in the clutch.
Yeah, and it makes things interesting, too, to see what's going to happen in the seasons ahead of them. But they do have, like you said, a lot of young guys that are stepping in. Kevin Payne he's getting a little older. Same thing with Kelly Hoffer. These guys have been around for quite some time. But you do have guys like Dirk Trepta, who actually got the game-winning walk-off single to win it all. So it should be interesting to see what happens in the following seasons. Blue Jays, I think, are a good bet to be in the final once again in 2014. Now let's go to the CPCA finals. And this was a little heartbreaking. Vern Nolan has won now back-to-back CPCA titles. But there's an issue with BJ Carey. Of course, in 2012, it was due to a late outrider. Things happen. It was unfortunate. This year, it was another penalty, this time by his own making, knocking down a barrel that cost him 5 seconds. And if he took those 5 seconds away, he would have won the CPCA championship. Does the win in 2013 take anything away from Vern Nolan and what he's done this season? And is it much like 2012, where we're like, it's not the greatest way to win a Canadian championship?
No, you know what? You race from the start at the end of May until halfway through August. So you're almost 2.5 months of solid racing to get to that top 4. And it's a challenge to get to that top 4. A lot of things can happen along the way to prevent you getting to that top 4. So when you're in that top 4 and you're racing for Canadian championship, anything can happen. And unfortunately in chuck wagon racing, it usually does. So Vern Nolan did what he had to do to get the opportunity to race for a Canadian championship. Unfortunately for BJ, door closes for him and opens up for Vern Nolan, and he wins a Canadian championship. So it doesn't take any away from what Vern Nolan did. He won by default, but at the same time, he had to be there to win. So Vern did what he had to do all summer long.
Yeah, I agree with that. Put yourself in a position to win, and like you said, anything can happen. It's a crazy sport. Like, there's a reason why you have barrels and outriders. If they didn't matter, they wouldn't be there. So,
Yeah.
all part of the game, and it's good for Vern.
You relate to hockey though. Say if you had two teams playing in the Stanley Cup final, Game 7, and a defenseman flips it in from the center ice and it beats the goalie. Are you going to say, oh, they didn't deserve to win? Well, they got to the Stanley Cup final. They got to Game 7. It was anybody's to win.
If you allow a goal from center ice, more times than not, you shouldn't be playing in net altogether. Hey, Rob Bagg, over the weekend, it was an innocent play, but you could see the tears in his eyes because he looked at his knee. Of course, he's had 2 surgeries on both knees on his ACLs. But what was really shocking was the following day. A lot of people thought this is the end for Rob Bagg. Then all of a sudden, Corey Sheets on Instagram posted a video of Rob Bagg doing the stairs on Mosaic Stadium, just the fans, like just the section. And it just seemed like one of those things where it was very surreal, because you had a guy who he was just tearing up, you thought it was the end for him, but yet you had Corey Sheets saying, yes, this is Rob Bagg doing the drills the following Monday. So what do you guys make of this? Is this guy on borrowed time, and how relieved are you if you're the Riders offense to have Rob Bagg, at least if he's running, that's a good sign.
Yeah, when Rob Bagg is healthy, he's definitely an asset. I think they're so deep at receiver this year. Like, it's a very competitive position for the Rough Riders. So obviously great to see him back and not as hurt as it looked like.
You know, it's just a great story for the amount of injuries he had to his knee in the last couple of years and the start of the season he's had. And then you see him walk off the field in tears. And then you see the video like that. That's just amazing. So you're hoping for the best for the guy, because I think everybody, not even in Saskatchewan, everybody across the league is rooting for him.
He's a fan favorite.
Yeah, Rob Vanstone said it best. He amplifies what Saskatchewan is when it comes to Saskatchewan tough.
Yeah.
He's not from the province, but you know what? He's definitely adopted by a lot of Saskatchewanians, that's for sure. When we come back, speaking of injuries, we're going to talk about Anthony Calvillo and the growing list on Montreal Alouettes injury roster. Stay tuned.